Hello friends. Today in this video I will tell you about 25 best PSP action-adventure games of all time. Generally speaking, the Marvel Comics legend Spider-Man has always done reasonably well for himself in the world of video games. That trend continues with the latest team-up from Activision and Treyarch in Spider-Man 2. Though the movie-themed game bites off a little more than it can chew with its attempt at an open-ended design, it gets a few key mechanics right and gives you just enough things to do to offset what would have otherwise been a pretty short, simple game. As Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger enter their fourth year at Hogwarts School of Wizardry and Witchcraft, new challenges await them, both professional and personal. The Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire video game sticks strictly to the adventure aspects of the story. It was only a matter of time before the prince made his way over to the PSP, and he does so in a mostly graceful fashion with the new Prince of Persia, Revelations. For those of you who have played a lot of Prince of Persia on home consoles or PC, Revelations is basically the same game as the second iteration of the series, Warrior Within. Ever since series creator Naughty Dog said goodbye to Crash Bandicoot on the original PlayStation, the series has floundered. While the reasons for the inconsistent quality are myriad, one of the key problems has been an inability to establish a tone that is consistent and compelling on the part of the short parade of developers who've tried their hand at the series. There's just no signature Crash Bandicoot feel anymore, which has made for a trail of indistinct, forgettable games. Now Radical Entertainment is at the helm for Crash of the Titans, and though it's a solid effort arguably better than the past few Crash games, it still kinda feels like yet another mascot platformer. Classic survival horror games such as Resident Evil and Silent Hill were never noted for their outstanding combat or truly dynamic gameplay. Their power rested on the fear generated by the constant struggle to stay alive in a world where you're outnumbered and outgunned and being chased by things with way too many teeth and arms in all the wrong places. That's the bitter irony of Obscure, The Aftermath, a good PSP port of a Wii game that was itself a sequel to a marginally popular Resident Evil knockoff released back in 2004. Much about the game is a well-done throwback to those early survival horror days. A lot has been made about Manhunt 2's supposedly ultra-violent content. It depicts a lot of grisly murders, gruesome decapitations, and a few swift kicks to the genitals for good measure. It's not as bloody as you'd expect, though. The much ballyhooed blurring added to the most extreme acts makes it occasionally difficult to see exactly what bloodthirsty rages you're subjecting your victims to. However, don't take this to mean that Manhunt 2 doesn't deserve its M rating. After all, there's still plenty of gore, sex, and adult language to go around. There's also some solid, stealthy gameplay to back up all the eviscerations. MediEvil first came to the PlayStation in 1998, and while it wasn't a smash hit, it's remembered fondly for its wacky cast of characters, interesting level design, and morbid sense of humor. So it seems like MediEvil was as good a choice as any when it came time for Sony to once again reach into its franchise grab bag to populate the PSP library. MediEvil: Resurrection is a pseudo-remake of the original game, but with some slightly changed levels and a handful of minigames tacked on. Unfortunately, the game hasn't aged well, and although it has plenty of personality, the maddening camera control and broken combat mechanics quickly spoil the fun. Lara Croft made a triumphant return in early 2006 with the release of Tomb Raider: Legend for home consoles and the PC. But that's not enough for Lady Croft, as now she's making her debut on the PlayStation Portable. The game is essentially the same on the PSP as it was on the consoles, so if you've played it before then you can expect to visit the same levels and solve the same puzzles all over again. Unfortunately, the biggest difference between the PSP version and the others is also its biggest downfall, and that is the often cumbersome, imprecise, and downright frustrating control. But if you can learn to live with the control, you'll find that Tomb Raider: Legend is a mostly competent action-adventure with more than a few enjoyable and exciting moments. In the same way that Ubisoft converted Prince of Persia, Warrior Within to Prince of Persia Revelations for the PlayStation Portable, so too has it released an updated version of Two Thrones for the Wii and PSP with Prince of Persia Rival Swords. Last year, developer Neversoft deviated from its busy schedule of cranking out nothing but Tony Hawk's skateboarding games for a refreshing change of pace in the gritty Old West action-adventure game, Gun. Though Gun wound up being probably a little too short for its own good, it offered some exciting shooting action and a good story. Now, a version of the game is available to take with you on the go in Gun Showdown, which is more than just a straight port of the original thanks to some extra effort put in by developer Rebellion. Gun Showdown adds some new multiplayer modes, playable against computer-controlled bots and not just human players, as well as some fittingly named quick play modes that can be fun for a few minutes at a time. Nevertheless, you won't find a better portable Western-themed shooter currently available. From the moment you turn on Silent Hill, Shattered Memories and are informed that the game plays you as much as you play it, it's evident that you're in for something quite different. Indeed, this is not the Silent Hill you may have come to expect. The fog, rust, and awkward combat of the past have been replaced by snow, ice, and lots of terrified running. Developer Climax Studios has reinvented the aging franchise for the better by removing the tedium, as well as going back to the basics of strong, psychological storytelling and an intense, chilling atmosphere. Regardless of how you feel about previous Silent Hill games, Shattered Memories is a fresh and welcome new beginning that's good for a scare. The Jak and Daxter series is a household name among platforming fans, getting much love for its madcap adventures imbued with a good dose of action and puzzle solving. The latest addition to the series is no different. It's a good-looking, challenging, and action-packed game that doesn't lack variety. While Jak and Daxter, The Lost Frontier plays a lot like its predecessors, there are enough enhancements such as the air combat elements to keep things fresh. The only things to watch out for are the sometimes off-camera enemies and the not-so-smooth storyline faults easily overshadowed by the solid and engaging gameplay. The King of All Cosmos, that epic personification of eccentric, intergalactic royalty, brings his uniquely articulate brand of white-hot crazy to the PSP with me and My Katamari. As a portable interpolation of Katamari Damacy, Me and My pretty much makes good, even in spite of a few technical compromises. The biggest hindrance to Me and My Katamari is its modest number of levels, even when considering the game's relatively short play time. Deadhead Fred is an ambitiously large action-adventure game that puts you in the role of a private investigator who has fallen on a bit of bad luck. Specifically, you've crossed the wrong bad guy and he's cut off your head. But of course, that isn't the end of the story. You're given a batch of new heads to use, each with their own unique abilities. Wackiness ensues in a long adventure that is undercut by unintuitive level design and poor combat. When you think of Silent Hill, what jumps to mind? A foggy town? Cryptic dialogue? Walls dripping with blood? Well, the good news is that Silent Hill Origins has all those things. That alone should please series fans who are looking to developer Climax's prequel to provide plenty of atmosphere and further expand on the Silent Hill mythos. But in this case, the good news is also the bad news because from a gameplay perspective, Origins is exactly what you would expect, delivering an entirely conventional adventure that relies on 8-year-old franchise hallmarks at the expense of anything truly new. When Tomb Raider first hit in 1996, it was nothing short of groundbreaking. While years of sequels that ranged from unremarkable to borderline offensive did a lot to tarnish the Tomb Raider name, developer Crystal Dynamics undid a lot of damage with last year's Tomb Raider, Legend. It focused on the strengths of the series' exotic locales, thoughtful puzzles, and incredible acrobatics while modernizing the gameplay, as well as streamlining the whole experience. Crystal Dynamics continues its good work with Tomb Raider Anniversary, which effectively goes back to the original Tomb Raider and rebuilds it from scratch. Now appearing on the PSP a few months after the PC and PS2 versions, Anniversary is still a solid action-adventure game. However, some control compromises and inconsistent performance issues put a small dent in the experience. Age of Zombies may be adding a time travel angle to the gaming cliché that the undead are becoming, but don't expect to run into any temporal causality loops or grandfather paradoxes here. This PSP minigame is simple, more than a little stupid, and a lot of fun. It gives you a good feeling of hectic glee as you single-handedly take on hundreds of zombies across 5 different time periods. The game takes its mini status seriously, though there's only about 1 hour's worth of play here, and with little incentive to go through the game again, Age of Zombies struggles to justify its price tag despite the fact that it's only $5. Right around the time of the theatrical release of Star Wars Episode III, Revenge of the Sith, Traveler's Tales released the surprisingly enjoyable LEGO Star Wars, a kid-friendly action-adventure game that inexplicably rendered the exploits of young Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi to look as though they were made out of LEGO building blocks. It was a curious combination, but it worked because the gameplay was novel enough, the combined nostalgia for Star Wars and Legos was potent, and the experience was delivered with a humorous, light-hearted flair. LEGO Star Wars 2 is an even better package than the original, due almost entirely to the fact that the emotional connection to A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi is much stronger for most people. Last year, Grand Theft Auto 3 took the world by surprise. While the first 2 games in the series had a small, hardcore following, their simple 2D graphics and lack of a focused narrative structure limited their appeal. On the other hand, TII featured a massive, clockwork world that was really impressive to behold, and it refined its predecessor's free-roaming, non-linear design and added a far more compelling story in the process. Those improvements, coupled with amazing vehicle physics, a surprising amount of variety in the gameplay, and a great sense of style, made TII a runaway hit in one of the rare games that is accepted by both hardcore and casual game players alike. But as good as Grand Theft Auto 3 is, the next game in the series, Grand Theft Auto: Vice City, improves upon it. Vice City expands on the themes and concepts found in Grand Theft Auto 3, fixes a few of the minor issues in the last game, and adds a lot of new abilities and items to play with. It all comes together to form one of the most stylish and most enjoyable games ever released. The story alone makes Metal Gear Solid: Portable Ops required playing material for fans of Kojima Productions' long-running, memorable stealth action series. This isn't called Metal Gear Solid 4, but this PlayStation Portable game is a direct continuation of the moving, thought-provoking storyline presented in 2004's MGS3, Snake Eater, and in turn, it sheds new light on some of the mysteries of the previous games in the series. That's the good news. The better news is that Metal Gear Solid: Portable Ops also takes the series in some interesting, new directions from a gameplay standpoint. This game has it all, featuring not only a great, open-ended solo campaign, but also some extensive multiplayer options and plenty of other surprises. Complicated controls and a storyline that doesn't waste much time on exposition mean Portable Ops will take a while for inexperienced players to get into, and even though it's amazing how much of the visual detail the series is known for got crammed into this game, fans will note that this isn't as lavish of a production as the games in the series proper. But this is still an all-around outstanding experience, especially since you can play it on the go. The word epic gets thrown around an awful lot, but it's rare that a portable game is worthy of such a lofty distinction. God of War: Ghost of Sparta doesn't let the diminutive hardware it resides on get in the way of delivering the breathtaking sense of scale for which the series is known. Incredible visuals ensure the mythical locations you venture to continually amaze with their strong sense of place and varied artistic design. And sharp controls push Kratos' unrelenting rage to the forefront so you can focus on tearing the minions who dare oppose you limb from bloody limb. Ghost of Sparta is an impressive technical achievement that is almost indistinguishable from its PlayStation 2 brothers, but that authenticity comes with a few drawbacks. The chaotic action makes it easy to lose Kratos on the PSP small screen, and some of the controls are uncomfortable enough to cause aggravation. But aside from a few awkward moments, Ghost of Sparta is another great entry in the respected series that does justice to Kratos' deadly exploits. Call it Grand Theft Auto Gaiden. While there have been handheld takes on the GTA series in the past, None of them have ever properly captured the things that made the modern installments in the series so popular. Things like the sprawling environments, its fast action freestyle mayhem, and, of course, the series' great sense of humor just haven't come across on a handheld before. Grand Theft Auto: Liberty City Stories is not without its problems, either, but it gets enough of the series' signature features in there to do right. Metal Gear Solid: Peace Walker, a portable addition to the celebrated stealth series, is a rich, fully fledged Metal Gear Solid game with top-notch production values and masses of content, packed onto the PSP. It complements a great-looking stealth action campaign with a strong co-op offering and bite-sized challenge missions, framed with a neatly presented resource management system in which you establish a private army. The game's many sideshows, ranging from tech development paths to member recruitment and a versus mode, add further value and depth to a commendably well-rounded experience. At first glance, Chinatown Wars could be mistaken for a return to the Grand Theft Auto series' humble 2D beginnings. The action is viewed from a more or less top-down perspective, and of course you still spend much of your time driving stolen cars and causing trouble with firearms. But the similarities between this superb PSP game and its 90s progenitors pretty much in there. Chinatown Wars actually has more in common with GTA's 3 and 4 than it does with earlier games, and, remarkably, it even adds to and improves on the formula that made those games so successful. That's a bold statement for sure, but Chinatown Wars really is that good. Ever since its existence was first hinted at on the back of God of War 2's game manual, God of War: Chains of Olympus has been one of the most anticipated games for the PlayStation Portable. Now that the wait is finally over, the question is, does it deliver? The answer is yes almost across the board. The combat, level design, gore, sex, and mythology are all here, albeit in slightly stripped down form. If you liked the video and found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. New videos coming soon.